Happy New Year! Welcome to my channel. My name is Nicky and I am ready to kick off 2020 with a great video for any of you trying to get into vegan baking. I've prepared a set of guidelines for you to think about in your next baking project. And hopefully this will really give you all the tools that you need to be able to make any recipe a vegan recipe. So what does it mean, vegan baking? Well, in pretty much all baking recipes you find animal products such as milk, butter, eggs, etc. So if you want to go vegan, you have to replace these animal products with something plant-based. Something like soy milk or applesauce, etc. So how to go about substituting these ingredients is the main focus of my video. Now, the tricky thing is there is no one-to-one replacement. It really depends on the type of baked good that you're trying to recreate. So, don't freak out just yet. I will give you a very basic set of conversions that you can try, but just bear in mind that there is no one-to-one translation, because for something like eggs, these have such a range of purposes in a recipe that it really needs a little bit of thinking about. So let's talk about eggs for a second. So the main characteristic of an egg is the fact that it's so rich in protein, and this has a secondary effect in your baking. It can provide moisture, it can thicken things, it can have a leavening effect, which can give the overall recipe structure. And it also has binding effects. Now, if we look at what is an egg, we see that we have the egg white and the egg yolk. The egg yolk is also high in protein as much as the egg white, but it's also high in fat. And this means it's a great emulsifier. Emulsifying means you can combine liquid and fat quite easily and make it stable. So this is something really important when it comes to baking. Now the egg white, on the other hand, is really just protein and water. And as we all know, if you whip it, you create this beautiful foam that is trapping air, and it's increasing its volume as more air gets trapped in there. And once you're done whipping this, you have a very stable product. And this is really useful as a raising agent for recipes. So as you can see, there are different components to the egg that can help certain parts of a recipe. So this is exactly what I mean when I say that it's not so easy to replace one egg with one vegan ingredient, because you have to think about the purpose of the egg for the specific recipe that you're trying. So now that we've covered that, we are ready for some substitutions. So let's start with the easy ingredients. To replace butter, you can use coconut oil, nut butter, and the most commonly used substitute is vegetable oil because of its lack of flavor. Okay. Moving on to another easy conversion, we have milk. And milk has a little bit of fat in there, but it's mostly liquid. And the most popular substitute for milk is soy milk. This has a relatively mild flavor, and the consistency is very similar to whole milk. Some people also like using almond milk. This has, of course, a nutty flavor, which could be something that you don't want for your baked goods, or it could be something that adds to those flavors. The next substitute is oat milk. Now, oat milk has a very cereal-like flavor, but it's rather neutral. So it's not as cloudy as soy milk, but it also works very well. And last but not least, coconut milk. Now, coconut milk can be quite heavy, so you don't want to substitute a lot of milk. If the recipe calls for a lot of milk, then this is probably not the best substitute. So there you have it. You have at least 4 options to play with, and they're many more out there. There's also rice milk, etc. And lucky for us, the conversion is 1-to-1. Now this brings me to liquid cream. You can simply add oil to, for example, soy milk, and there you have your substitute. Next up we have gelatin, and there's a seaweed alternative called agar-agar, which is a 1-to-1 substitute for gelatin. The textures are quite similar and they react in the same way. Next up we have honey, and honey is a sweetener, so we can substitute it with some maple syrup or agave syrup. They're both great options, they're both 1-to-1, and I would say that if you're looking for a similar texture to honey, then go for agave instead of maple syrup, because you see that it has quite a runny texture. Now for eggs, I told you this is a tricky story because there are no 1-to-1 conversions. So I'm gonna start by showing you great substitutes for things like cupcakes and cakes. And what we have here is 2 types of seeds. You can have chia seeds or flax seeds, but you have to ground those up. And you just need to add a little bit of warm water to that and let it sit for about 5 minutes until you reach this consistency. You can see it's very gooey and thick, and this is a great binder, which is what makes it great for cakes and cupcakes. Now, if the eggs in a cake recipe are the main raising agents, then you have to substitute that with different kinds of raising agents, such as baking soda and baking powder. Now let's talk about quick breads and in general baked goods that require a lot of moisture that comes from the egg. And if that's the case, then I suggest you try substituting the egg with applesauce or with banana, and make sure that banana is very, very ripe. Now, last but not least, I'm giving you substitutes which are great for recipes that call for a lot of egg whites, such as macarons, meringues, marshmallows, etc. And interestingly enough, someone decided to use the water from a chickpea can, and it's a bit gooey, it's a bit thick, and it has the same property as the egg whites, that if you whip them up, it foams up. So this is one of the favorite substitutes for egg whites. And you can also use agar-agar for substituting eggs. It's very similar to an egg white. It has the property that you can whip it up as well with some syrup, and it can form things like marshmallows. It's great. So that was the substitution part of the video. I hope this makes your transformation into vegan baking a lot easier. Didn't cover everything that there is to know about vegan baking substitutes, because there are so many other options like silken tofu and more exotic ingredients, shall we say. But hopefully this is your stepping stone to get into it. So thanks for watching. I hope you try these substitutions if you have, and if you know more, let me know in the comment box below and I'll check them out. And give it a thumbs up if you liked the video, and stay tuned because I will take my own advice and I will try some vegan recipes myself and share them with you on the channel. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you next time with more content.